Right, this is quite possibly going to be the most raw footage of someone talking about life that you will ever find. This is not scripted by any stretch, but has plenty of emotion behind it, and I'm going to get straight into it because I don't want to waste your time. If you're someone who is striving towards things that other people are not, you are going to experience a great deal of hardship. And within that hardship, you are going to find yourself feeling perpetually misunderstood. You're going to find yourself worrying. You're going to be anxious about things. You are never going to feel as though the people around you, a lot of the time, just understand you, to be quite frank. Now, I don't say this to be nihilistic or pessimistic in any stretch of the imagination. What I intend to do with this video is make those that this resonates with understand that they are not as alone as they think they are. I am going to, for a few minutes now, go into my own story, not because I want to gloat or make any point of anything that it is that I have done, but because I want you to know that I have experienced this, and this is something that I understand intimately well. The last probably 4 years now, maybe 3, but last few years I have really put myself towards growth. It has been the most important thing on my agenda to progress myself and to just move in the right direction with things. I became pretty aware of the fact that I really wanted to make something for myself. I didn't just want to be like everyone else, I suppose. And there's no shade to be thrown there. I just didn't want to do the thing that I have seen so many people be miserable doing. And as a result of that, I decided that the best thing to do would be to put some time into myself. I thought it'd be a good idea to start looking at the habits that I'm not so keen on, that I know don't tend to put me in the most sort of fruitful of mental states, see whether I could work on those and look at what it is that I could potentially bring in to replace them. And as a result of gradually working through that day by day, I went from what I shall proudly admit was a very weak, feeble person who was at the mercy of his whims and totally lacking respect as much as just general value, I suppose, to someone who I would say people are, quite happy to be friends with, a decent person. And in the sort of journey of doing that, I have consistently found myself battling with this idea of feeling as though I am not understood, I suppose. Feeling as though wherever I go, I can't do right because the people around me don't understand what it is that I'm doing, and I can't do right because I don't want to do what they're doing. This is obviously, as you can probably see the dilemma in front of you here, that comes with its challenges. And I think one of the biggest challenges I have actually faced is feeling as though I don't have any challenges because no one can relate to them. Now, as I say, I want a through road here. I don't just want this to be for the selfish sake of me getting some shit off my chest. I do want there to be a through road here. And I think that presents itself pretty well in the fact that I can see, when I look on a grander scale, a lot of the time that the people who may have hurt me with their actions or may just be sort of the norm, I suppose, I can see the way that the story plays out a lot of the time behind the scenes and in front of me. There'll be people that I know for their sort of outlandish behaviour and for their consistent drive to do the degenerate thing, which I shall caveat, I am no stranger to. I enjoy a party and I enjoy a drink and I enjoy some other things too. So I'm no stranger to this by any stretch, but the people that I see that put this at the forefront of their existence and as a result of that use this as their sense of purpose are the exact people who will tell me or make me feel sincerely uncomfortable sometimes. And yet they will still be the same person who I see at rock bottom, struggling, really putting themselves through some things that I don't understand because I didn't put myself there. And I think the message that I'd like to sort of convey with that point, not just to sound like a prick, but really to make something of that, is when you do the right thing for yourself, you very rarely get the results straight away. A lot of the time, it is essentially the same trajectory of planting a tree, of you put the seed in now, but you won't see the results for a while. And if you're watching this video, you probably understand that. You understand the idea of sort of delayed gratification, as the phrase goes, and you get that. But I think something that I struggled with for quite a long time was feeling as though I wasn't struggling enough with my journey, I suppose, and I beat myself up for that, and that stems from not feeling understood too. And I suppose within that, I want people to know that the difficulty other people face when they choose to do things is not going to be the same difficulty that you face, and as a result of that, it will probably be a lot harder than what other people are enduring. You know, when someone goes through a breakup or when someone goes through their 7th breakup of the last 3 years because they have no continuity within themselves, and as a result of that don't want to spend any time with themselves, that person is not going to be able to relate to the struggle of feeling lonely. It's two different things. And I just want to make the point. I suppose that is the essence of today's video. What I'm trying to do is make the point of the fact that the struggles and the difficulty that comes with choosing the right path is absolutely worth it, but will come with its challenges. And what I want to attach to that is the fact that you shouldn't give up. You shouldn't let the fact that it's difficult push you towards the easier behaviour, because it's just not worth it. I honestly think it's not worth it. I think as someone who has had his fair share of experiences of disappointment and upset and annoyance and loneliness because of the virtuous path, or what I would like to think is the virtuous path, as someone who has a pretty good bearing of the difficulty that it poses, I wouldn't change what I've experienced just to fit in. And I think a lot of people do. I think people see something for themselves and they realise that if they're going to take that path, they're going to have to do it alone. And as a result of that, they don't do it. And I felt this way. I really had to move away from thinking like that, because if I was to follow the crowd, I may well follow them off of the cliff. And I didn't want to do that. And I don't think a lot of people do want to do that, but I think a lot of people are propelled by this sense of aversion towards loneliness. And I would say to that end that I'm going to use the next few minutes as a point on loneliness. I think loneliness, unfortunately, maybe not unfortunately, but certainly, is something that will come along for the ride if you choose to do something worth doing. And I will tell you why in pretty quick time. If you're doing something that other people don't do, then you're not going to be understood. And as a result of not being understood, you're not going to feel understood. You're going to find yourself in positions where you feel like the only person who can really get what it is that you're getting at is yourself. Now, there is absolutely some nuance to that, because there are plenty of people who think exactly the same way as you do. The reason why you might be in this space today, or any space of a similar context, is because there are people like you. There are people that watch the videos, and there are the people that make the videos themselves. We get it. And I suppose I should say here that loneliness is not a permanent thing, but it is certainly something that comes along for the ride in self-improvement that I would like people to know comes along for the ride, because it was something that I struggled with for quite a while, of really sort of understanding the fact that it was a necessary pain. And I suppose that's the thing that I struggled with for quite a while, was not realising that self-improvement does come with a lot of pain. It does come with its hardship. And you don't really see that at the start, because even when you feel somewhat outcasted, there's like a sense of pride about it, because you think it's uncommon. I'm uncommon amongst uncommon men, or I'm doing something different, and I can see the benefit of the fact I'm doing the thing that's different. But you haven't yet been made aware of the fact that within your difference comes isolation. Now, what I should say is, as someone who has been doing the whole self-improvement thing for a few years now, the year that came with the most growth was the one that I spent totally alone. Now, I was in a relationship for a few years, and within that time, that took me from sort of beginning the arc to being quite well into the arc. It was only at the point of which I shall freely admit I was enlisted into the regiment of the incel that I really started to change as a person. I'd made some inroads and become someone who was not the same as the guy that you would have spoken to a year before, but I was still essentially the same character. You wouldn't have been able to differentiate. It would have been pretty easy, rather, to differentiate the... Hang on, what am I trying to say here? The version of me that was 2 years ago and the version of me that was 3 years ago were different, but close enough for you to be able to see who it was that you were talking to. I would say, and I try and bite my tongue here as to not sound too arrogant, that's not the case now. The person who sits and speaks to you now is not the person, rather, who would have spoken to you a few years ago. And I think loneliness is a really hard thing for people to push through, because in pushing through it, you really do face some stuff. And I won't hide that. I think it's very important that people don't sort of glamorize things like this, because if you glamorize it and then someone gets into this and thinks, yeah, I'm going to go the lone road, be the lone wolf, all the rest of that, and then I get there and I think, hang on, I'm lonely and I feel detached and I feel like people don't understand me. If that happens, I think that can really put people off the scent and off the trail, I suppose. And I don't want that to happen. I want people to realise that self-improvement will come with its shit, but it's worth it. It really is worth it. I wouldn't want to be like other people. I don't even want to sound too grand saying that. I wouldn't want to be like the people I don't want to be like just to fit in the way that they do. And I think if you don't resign yourself to the fact that within this journey will come some difficulties that you won't foresee, then you're not going to allow yourself to eat some fruits that are really quite tasty, I suppose. It's hard. It really is hard. And if you couldn't see it today, it's something that I'm feeling at the moment. I should be totally transparent with you. It's excuse me. I'm struggling a bit with feeling sort of outcasted. And I know that this comes in waves, and from my experience, I know that give it maybe 2 weeks and I'll probably be thinking a very different thing. I would have had the connection that I need to have from the people that I need to have it from. But loneliness is something that I can certainly feel close to my heart at the moment, and as a result of that, I would like to make the point of the fact that it is worth doing, you know? And to that end, some time on your own is worth enduring, even if it is enduring sometimes, because that's where you really understand who you are as a person. And I'm not sure how many people actually get that. Now, I shall caveat everything I'm saying here with the fact that I have quite a difficulty in providing advice or making a comment towards myself without being perpetually concerned with the fact that I'm being either sort of lambasting or just generally arrogant. But I should put that caveat there before I move on with what I'm going to say. I'm glad that I am the way that I am, and I think loneliness and choosing to be alone has been a pretty big part of that. And I would say I've chosen to be alone. I haven't been in relationships for about a year now, and I have had the opportunity to change that, and I haven't, because I didn't want to settle for something. I think, without rambling on too much, because I can see some repetition in what it is that I'm saying here, I want people to be aware of the fact that the root of loneliness can quite often be the one of greatest connection to yourself, and that's important. It really is important. I don't know how many people really understand who it is that they are as much as who it is that they are with a certain person or in a certain circumstance, and I want that to be known, that there is a real amount of value to be found in that. I should also say that it doesn't come without its price. You are going to pay in some form of discomfort for wanting to be different and for wanting to improve and for wanting to get better at things, but that's all right, man. You don't need to. It's a bill that's worth paying. That's the way that I would put it. That's honestly the way I would put it, is when you get in you feel wonderful for doing good things for yourself, and then you'll push that a little bit further, and maybe you're starting to get to a point upon which you feel the discomfort that I am outlining here and that I'm feeling myself. And at that point you might want to quit, but I would say you will also get to a time like this where you realise you can't quit. You realise that you've become someone who is far greater than who it is that you once were, and you don't have the facilities to quit anymore. You don't have the facilities to be someone you're not. And the lesson that I'd like you to derive from that is, once you put in really what I would say is not actually that much work, you get addicted to the taste of good. You get enticed by the idea of improvement, and as a result of that, you don't want to step backwards. You want to continue going in the direction you're going in, because it's who you've become. And in that, I would say you will become wise to the fact that you might be alone at the moment, or you might not be feeling understood, or you might just not be feeling that great, because that sometimes happens with self-improvement, with choosing the right path. You'll get to a point where you realise that this is not forever, and you will come out the other side with the accolades and the prestige and the positivity of what it is that you have decided to do for yourself. And you'll realise that you've come to a point where not only do you have these accolades, you also have the comfort to be on your own, and as a result of that, you have the love for yourself that is necessary in order to show up for a relationship, in order to show up for other people. So, to round out and to make the point, loneliness in moderation, and that moderation is essentially what I'm saying there, is making sure that you have the foresight to want to change that in a period of time, but being on your own for some time is good. When you choose to do things that are good for yourself, you will experience kickback, and that kickback will quite often be in the form of people saying things that you just don't understand because it's not the way you're thinking, or the other way around, people saying things to you that you're just not clicking because they don't think the way that you think. That will come along for the ride. There will be a price to pay for your greatness, but you will be great. And you will have achieved something for yourself that you will be proud of, and that when things fall back in line and go the way that your work is pushing you, you'll feel glad that you've done it. And to that end, if you're struggling, carry on, keep going, push through. You will be all right, and you will be glad that you have done that. I think that's as much as I want to say for today. So please like, subscribe, all the rest of it, all that jazz, but more importantly, enjoy. Or I hope you've enjoyed, I suppose I'd say. A bit of past tense there. I should work on my English.